$4.57.
An all-time record and painful for drivers like Brian Brower in Tampa.
It takes over $100 to fill it up. It makes it harder to work and make any money, and I don't understand the reason for it.
President Biden blames Russia. Republicans blame his policies as the price at the pump. Now $2.18 more per gallon than when he took office. The national average for diesel, $5.57 per gallon, another record high.
Fox's Jeff Manasso. The House has passed a measure to increase federal spending to prevent domestic terrorism. The suspect in the murder of 10 people at a Buffalo supermarket is due back in court on Thursday. It's been revealed detailed plans for the attack were posted online 30 minutes in advance. 5 people have been shot in North Philadelphia. 3 of them are reported in critical condition. Police have 2 suspects, but so far, no motive. President Biden departing midday Thursday for a 6-day trip to North Korea and Japan. America is listening to Fox News.
When the pandemic first started and we had no idea that it was going to affect our business till March of 2020. Orders from public health, roadblocks, restriction. It was a very hard time for me. What really has saved my business is the SBA and the PPP program. I felt keeping the employees was so important because I had faith that my government would help me later, the federal government. We applied and we received 2 PPP loans equaling up to $425,000. That money saved me because it's been 2 years. I think 80 or 90% of the restaurants have closed. The only reason I'm here because of my devoted clientele and the federal government.
Thank you for helping save jobs with federal funds.
Thank you to the federal government for all the federal ARP money.
Thank you for the federal funds.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
We're still likely days, maybe even weeks away from a winner in the Pennsylvania Republican Senate primary.
Counting continues amid delays and hiccups. In Lancaster County, a printing error affected 22,000 ballots, forcing poll workers to mark each ballot by hand. And in Allegheny County, 31 precincts experienced memory stick failures at voting machines, delaying results until next week. If the final margin of victory is half a percentage point or less, an automatic recount will be triggered. The recount must start by May 26th and end by June 7th.
Fox's Brian Yennis. Dr. Mehmet Oz currently leading businessman Dave McCormick by 0.09%. That's well within the mandatory recount range. Former Minneapolis police officer Thomas Lane has pleaded guilty to a state charge of aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter in the death of George Floyd. Lane, along with 2 other fired cops, was already convicted on federal charges of violating George Floyd's civil rights. Lane reportedly agreeing to a 3-year sentence to be served in federal prison concurrently with any sentence he gets from the federal court. The man known as the Pharma Bro is a step closer to freedom.
Martin Shkreli served most of a 7-year sentence for cheating investors in a drug company and lying to hedge fund investors. Though he's not free just yet, only transferred from a federal prison in Pennsylvania to a halfway house, now due to be out of federal custody in September, about a year earlier than expected. The 39-year-old infamously hiked the price of a life-saving medicine from less than $14 a pill to $750. An arrest on securities fraud charges led to his resignation as head of Turing Pharmaceuticals. But earlier this year, a federal judge ordered Shkreli to return more than $64 million in profits from the price hike and barred him from the pharmaceutical business for life. Lisa Brady, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. My name is Joan Kinata from the village of Umate. I've applied for the program as Salapi to help me in my daily commute from Umate to Manila. Thank you to this administration for the program in Salapi.
The application deadline for program in Salapi has been extended to May 22nd, 2022. For more information, please visit doa.guam.gov. This ad was paid for by the Office of the Governor using government funds.
King's Guam World Tennis Tour, presented by GTA, is bringing international tennis back to Guam. 4 weeks of international play will swing into action with 2 weeks of juniors, followed by 2 weeks of pros, May the 15th through June 12th. The Guam National Tennis Federation will host world-ranked players who will be coming to Guam from all over the world. Netters will compete for ranking points and cash to improve their position among the world's best. Matches will be played daily at the Guam National Tennis Center in Harmon, starting May 15th through June 12th. Special thanks to our platinum sponsor, sponsors Dimension Systems, NewGen, American Medical Center, and Morico Equipment.
The Federal Reserve is starting to increase interest rates to fight inflation, but they're still so low, making it the perfect time to refinance your home, to lower your rate, and perhaps take advantage of its increased value to put some cash in your pocket during these uncertain times. Cash that you can have the freedom to access when you want, where you want, with your Bank Pacific Visa debit card. Lower your rate with cash in your pocket. Access your cash when you want, where you want, with your Visa debit card. Brothers put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, credit conditions apply.
Mornings on Star 101 are getting blended. Day, I'm Kyle Mandapat, and I'm making my return to radio on Star 101. I hope you're ready to go, because I'm ready to go. The Morning Blender with me, Kyle Mandapat, every weekday starting May 23rd from 6 to 9 a.m. only on Star 101.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed. Certainly not during the next 2 hours. We don't even entertain any talk about infringing Second Amendment rights here on Tall Tales. Well, actually, we do. We'll listen to just about anybody. And it's one of the things that I do here on Tall Tales. No matter how wrong you are after listening to my explanation, I will still protect your right to continue being wrong. Just don't take me up on it.
Did you see today's editorial cartoon in the PDN?
Refresh my recollection.
It has this person who probably is a kid under 21 at looks like a gun shop with a pistol on the counter going, I know it's illegal for me to purchase a six-pack of Bud, but could I buy that assault weapon? I was like, no. The left cannot meme. They don't know how to do anything funny.
No, they don't. They don't.
That's a Second Amendment failure right there.
Exactly. Yeah. And whenever you hear someone, well, you know, those assault weapons, when you hear somebody talking about assault weapons, that's like holding up a sign saying, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to keep on talking.
Now, I normally don't compare things together that really shouldn't be compared, like deaths. But since they compared a six-pack of Bud to a pistol, I looked up some of the statistics, and deaths from drunk drivers in accidents far outweigh deaths from homicides and pistols or any other kind of firearm.
It's not even close.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands. And that's just an incredible statistic if you're going to compare the two.
Yeah.
So try to get it right next time.
Yeah, and then if you were to compare how many people were killed by pistols, if you would come up with a number, but if you subtracted the number of people killed by pistols in Chicago, the number almost disappears.
It's
those criminals in Chicago just don't understand gun control. Okay, let's go to Zemi Ikotny. Yeah, this editorial is one of those where if you're going to do something like this, I would completely understand it. It's one of those, wow, I never would have thought of that. No! Here's the editorial headline: Our View, make visitors to Guam feel welcome and appreciated. That is such an innovation. You know, if it weren't for my reading this, I'd think, you know, probably what we should do is make faces at all the way. Give them the finger. Tell them to get the hell out of here.
That's the new wave.
Yeah. Hire Hope Cristobal to meet him at the airport and say, you're nothing but a white supremacist. You don't belong here. You know, Hope would make if it hadn't been for this headline, that probably would have been what I would have thought to do, because, you know, Hope is the chairman of the Chamorro Language Commission, and she's nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. I think she'd be a great greeter at beep, beep. Yeah, so the editorial says it's probably been a while since most of us last heard the famous Guam tourism marketing slogan, "Welcome all visitors enthusiastically." The acronym for those 5 words or 4 words are WAVE. Get it? The timing couldn't be more appropriate to resurrect the old saying to remind all residents to remember to let the Hoffaday spirit shine through when we're out and about. Eager travelers are booking their vacation packages. Flights are filling up. Airports are getting crowded again, and tourists are finally making their long-awaited return to Guam yesterday. I saw both of them yesterday. The Visitors Bureau announced the arrival of a second group of travel ambassadors from Guam as part of the hashtag Here We Guam marketing campaign, a group that hopefully will go home with stories of our safe paradise in the Marianas. All we got to do is make sure that defecation lady is kept out of the tourist areas, right? Don't take any tourists north of Dedido on Marine Corps Drive because they'll be appalled at the appearance of our public highways up there. Yeah, along with these travel groups, airlines are announcing increased flights to Guam, another important sign that better days for tourism are on the horizon. And as our visitors enjoy what they came here to do, choggy some Keligwin, soak in the sun, or immerse themselves in good old-fashioned cultural activities at the Valley of the Latte or the Guam Museum, we residents have responsibility to contribute to our visitors' overall experience. I'm going to add my own 2 cents worth in here. Choggy some Keligwin, soak in the sun, or immerse themselves in cool, old-fashioned cultural activities down at the Valley of the Latte or Guam Museum. Enjoy a good breakfast, lunch, or dinner beachside at Touray Cafe. Whether you choose to participate in a cleanup to keep our roadways and beaches clean, barbecue beachsides in Hagatna with the familia, or snorkel alongside our visitors down at Gun Beach, take a second to greet our guests with a smile and welcome them to the island. Tourists returning home with stories of friendly, hospitable locals will augment the effectiveness of travel brochures and package deals. A visitor's experience with local community is just as important as the quality of their hotel, dining, and shopping experiences. And our economics pandemic recovery depends greatly on the return of our visitors, with a significant portion of the workforce employed in various careers within the hospitality industry. It's safe to say we all can play a vital role in marketing Guam as a vacation destination. Yeah, I read somewhere the other day that when it comes to eating out, going to a bar, going to a show, whatever, all of the elements are important, but it's the total experience that really makes a difference. In my own experience, that's correct. I've been to restaurants, as an example, or bars even, where the food wasn't really, food was passable, not that great, but the atmosphere in the place, the friendliness of the staff, and the general ambiance was, I use words.
When you say it with an accent.
Yeah, ambiance, was such that it was just a really good experience. And that's what rings the bell, a really good experience, so that when people go back to wherever they came from, they say, yeah, I really had a great time in Guam. Well, what was so good about it? It's hard for me to put my finger on it, but it was just such a great experience. That's what we're looking for.
But you might be onto something about being rude, though. There's several restaurants, I think, in New York. There's one in London that people go there just to be treated very badly and disrespected. And you remember that TV show Seinfeld?
Yeah.
With the guy who was serving soup at his restaurant called the Soup Nazi. They went there just because they were treated badly by the guy, but he had great soup.
I took my grandchildren to a restaurant in Chicago way back like 20 years ago called Ed DeBevick's. And the explanation was that everybody that worked there was some kind of an actor or actress. They all wanted careers in show business. And so...
In Chicago.
Yeah. Are you going to order or are you just going to sit here and take up space? Yeah, it was... And the kids just were laughing till their sides split. It was really funny. And if it's still open, if I ever get back there, I'll try it again. Okay, so much for... I don't think we want to try that here.
The Atambaba tour?
Okay, once again, the Post doesn't have an editorial, but I'm going to give Harvey a little time on the show here and let him fill in the gap created by the absence of an editorial. And if this were going to be on the card, it would be, the card would read Harvey versus Pork Adobo. And the title of Harvey's letter is Promising Raises Without Funds to Pay Them is Irresponsible. Last week, there was some positive news. Our Guam Department of Education teachers and other staff were to receive sizable raises as of May 23. But the era of good feelings faded quickly when the legislature questioned where the money would come from to pay the raises. $10 million just for the balance of this year and $30 million plus for the teachers, and even more for the principals and other administration and staff in the next fiscal year. On top of that, DOE revealed that it had a recurring annual deficit of $16 million going back years. I'll be the first to say our educators deserve a raise. My wife is a teacher. Well, that explains that, doesn't it? And I know how hard they work, both in and outside the classroom. But to promise raises without being 100% sure you can pay them, what a letdown it must be for these hardworking educators. To the rescue comes Guam's budget guru, Lester Carlson, who says he will find the money for raises. And he was quoted in another article. I'll find the money for raises. And the question, well, how are you going to do that? And his answer was, well, I can do it. It's just like my recipe for pork adobo. I can make it, but I'm not going to tell you what the recipe is. And as Harvey says, it's a secret, but just trust him. I couldn't believe that someone with a responsibility for $1 billion budget actually made that statement. Lester Carlson. GovGuam is the equivalent of running a huge corporation with thousands of employees performing diverse functions, and somehow $10 million can clandestinely be pulled out of that, out of a hat. Pulled out of a hat. So much for transparency. In the end, I come back to one word, perception. Yes, raises are deserved, but is the timing right? How many non-GovGuam residents received raises this year, let alone 18 to 20% raises? How does the governor promise our teachers raises without knowing where the funds to actually pay these raises come from? GovGuam is comparable to a big business. We have $1 billion budget and hundreds of millions sitting in the bank. Yet the governor made a public statement affecting thousands of employees without solid confirmation that a raise commitment could be met on May 23. And it's amateur hour in the budget department with down-home comparisons of secretly finding money being equated to an adobo recipe. Does this make us feel comfortable? So, no, Jangen Eleknia Kadu? Yeah. Mas maulik, lo titzahu pork adobo. But anyhow, the perception is that one hand doesn't know what the other is doing, and that needs to change. For the sake of those expecting a raise, I hope their money's available. Making a promise without being able to deliver doesn't exactly create a positive perception. Back in the day, there was an expression for someone who could make a promise upon which he couldn't deliver. That person was called a four-flusher. If you understand poker, you know, a five of the same suit is called a flush. It's a powerful hand. And a four-flusher is someone who leads you to believe that he's got 5 hearts, spades, clubs, diamonds, when he only has 4.
Nope.
Now, in poker, you know, sometimes a guy would bet like he had a flush, even though he only had 4. But that's the rules of the game in poker. But in life, being a four-flusher is not a title you want to achieve. Promising something that you know you can't deliver, that's a four-flusher. So what Harvey's doing here is saying not only do we look to the to the face cards for our governor, where we find the Red Queen, we also look at suit and find that she's a four-flusher. Okay, as of this writing, I'm not aware that the $10 million has been located, but then again, that's a secret. Okay, now the squib at the bottom of this is Harvey Egnez, a resident of Jonian, is running for a seat in the 37th Guam legislature. Harvey, I'm going to give you some free advice. I've given this free advice before. Maybe I need to provide it again. Anybody who's running for office, this is Bob's several-step plan as to how to get elected. First thing you do is you sit down with a piece of paper and a sharp pencil, and you write down one page of well-chosen words as to why you want to be a senator, and that would show what you will do if you are a senator. Don't even think about writing down idiotic things like, I want to serve the people. I want to give back to the people of Guam. Nothing like that. The real reasons that you want to write down, the real reasons you want to be a senator. Now, many, if not most of the incumbents would put something like this on the paper. I want to make $55,000 a year without working very hard. I don't want to be I want to be accountable to anybody for my time. I want a snazzy office that perhaps rents for as much as $3,000 a month. I want to be able to go to every social event that I'm interested in, show up 15 minutes late, and rather get the Atanbana, be welcomed with open arms and giving me the opportunity to make a grand entrance. Oh, and now we have to pause for a moment to welcome Senator Smuckahakowitz. Welcome, Senator.
Even though we're 3 hours into the event.
Yeah, it's so nice of you to drop by. These are some of the more reasons. Because I'd really like to hire a large staff. You know, I'd like to have a manservant, a maidservant, a footman, a butler, someone to help me on with my... Yeah, you know, I'd like to have a lot of tentagos around me. Let's see. Oh, yeah, and then I want to be able to... I want to be able to have people pay attention to what I say, even when what I say doesn't make any sense at all. These are the reasons that I want to be reelected, said Ike incumbent. So don't write stuff like this on your paper, Harvey. Write down the reasons that you want to be a senator and include in that what you will do if you are a senator. Having done that, you will be able to move on to the next step, which is develop your message. And your message is the 2, 3, maybe 4 things that you want people to know about what you're going to do, your guiding principles as a senator. Now, from reading this piece here, I would say frugality or fiscal responsibility might be one part of your message. I don't know. But you need to have that message, and you need to work every conversation that you're in around to that message, especially when you're out doing retail campaigning. When you're doing retail campaigning, the object is to develop the ability to get your message out quickly in such a friendly manner that it makes an impact on the person you're talking to, even though he probably wanted to bitch about something, which is the main reason that people want to talk to candidates. While you're out there on the campaign trail like that, Harvey, this whole thing about kissing babies, it's true. If you will kiss, if a constituent will allow you to kiss his or her, their baby, you know, they'll vote for you forever unless you really screw up. Retail campaigning is important, but you can't make it just on retail campaigning. The magic words for campaigning are radio, TV, and social media. Forget about the signs, the beer can sleeves, the cups, the T-shirts, the hats, all the rest of that stuff. Radio, TV, and social media. Now, this gets you back to your message, Harvey. And if you have a message that resonates with the public, and the only way you're going to find out if it resonates with the public, you're not going to spend a lot of money on polling because you probably don't have it, but you're going to have to talk to other people and find out what resonates with them. And you're going to have to make what at least amounts to an educated guess as to what resonates with the public. Now, something like the restoration of the Holy Roman Empire probably wouldn't work. Something like, I will work for a part-time legislature will work. That's the kind of thing you're looking for. Because it's my experience that a credible messenger who is able to communicate a message that resonates with the public will probably get elected. That's what it takes. However, you can't start working on being a credible messenger the day you file your papers. If the only time you are attempting to get out your message is after you've become a candidate, you're already starting out in a deep hole, and you may very well consider using this campaign as a run-up to next campaign, as the ability to lay a foundation for the next campaign. Because in order to be a credible messenger, you have to have a public presence. Now, some people will say, well, yeah, that's name ID. Well, it's a little more complicated than just name ID. Because in order for you to be elected, people have to be able to visualize you as a senator. So if all you do is put a big sign, a big picture of yourself up beside the road, that doesn't help people visualizing you as a senator. But if you go to public hearings, if you go to a lot of public hearings and you speak in such a manner that people say, that guy is pretty responsible, he's articulate, he's knowledgeable, and he seems to know what he's talking about. If you're able to take opportunities like speaking to Rotary clubs or other civic organizations, that is another way. But if you're just starting now, you're starting way behind the power curve. You probably need to start at least a year before the primary if you haven't already established yourself as a person of credibility in the community. So if you've only moved here, you got to live here 5 years to run, and no one knows who you are, you got a hard uphill fight. Because one of the rules here in politics is that people would rather vote for somebody they don't like than somebody they don't know, strange as it may seem. Now, if you get past all that, Harvey, I'll give you the short course on waving, which is very important, but I've spent enough time on this already. So, no charge, how to get elected to the Guam legislature, brought to you by Tall Tales.
And that was your pork adobo recipe.
That was my pork adobo recipe, yeah. I opened up the cookbook and let you look at the pages. Let's take a short break.
Happy my name is Jennifer Quijano Paredo of Protect Services. So when COVID hit, everything was about COVID this, COVID that, and somehow even my equipment was catching COVID. But joking aside, my equipment is important in our daily operations. Somehow I was having a difficult time getting through SBA. They were just giving me a runaround. So I reached out to our congressman's office, and with their team and the Guam SBA, they were able to help me in getting our truck repairs as well as another truck to keep our businesses running. And in the future, if you guys have any federal concerns or issues, reach out to your congressman's office.
Thank you for helping save small businesses with federal funds.
Thank you for helping save small businesses.
Thank you for helping small businesses with federal funds.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Turning Point USA Guam presents a common sense conservatives conversation on issues affecting us daily. Guam Live, a streaming event just for Guam. The event will feature young conservatives Isabel Brown with the Trump administration and Students for Life, and Stephen Davis, also known as MAGA Hulk, the new young conservative superstar. It'll also be aired live as a VIP event at the Dusset Beach Resort for free. There's limited tickets for the event, so get them now. Scan the QR code with your mobile device if you see any of our flyers. Search Guam Live on Eventbrite to find out more.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Okay, so let me take a peek at the card here and see what we've got on the card for this afternoon. Obviously, we start out with systemic racism, and then we've got Therese versus Bill 291. McNinch versus Saul is in Better Call. Clay Travis versus Kaepernick, a fellow broadcaster here on the Point, Clay Travis. Governor versus Esteves, and that's all I've got on the card today, so I'm going to be pretty flexible and open the phone lines for stuff that interests you if you so would like to join the parade today. So let's see, I got some folks in the green room already. I've already got... I'm drawing a blank in the green room again, Jose.
I see nothing on the board.
Yeah. The phones are lighting up? Mine are.
I'll come in and check that out. That is lit.
Yeah. Okay. I thought I had a couple of phone calls there, but just the telephone playing tricks on me, I guess. I lost my Facebook page here. Give me a minute here, and I'll be back with you. Shunk. Maybe give me a hand here, Jose. Anyhow, this is what I got on the card. Yeah, I already told you what I got on the card. I'm going to start out with Therese versus Bill 291. Now, Bill 291... Bill 291 is the Heartbeat Act, and it's had, let's see, 4 sessions of public hearings. It came before the Rules Committee, and Therese has a hard time. Yeah. Therese has had a hard time putting items on the session agenda because the conventional wisdom holds that when a bill goes on the session agenda, the committee report ought to be in the hands of all the senators, and it ought to be on the website of the legislature. Well, the committee report on 291 wasn't finished. And Therese wanted to put it on the session for May, and that's where the conflict arose. So I'll take this story that ran in the Post and probably have to fill in some of the blanks. The headline of the story is Guam Heartbeat Act removed from May session agenda. Well, in order to be removed, that means it had to be on the session agenda. You can't remove something that's not on the agenda. But here we go. The controversial legislative measure on abortion 291-36 has been removed as a potential item for the May session agenda, according to Speaker Therese Tetlahi. Tetlahi said the vote only temporarily prevents action on the bill. She also noted concerns that the bill's sponsors could be trying to delay discussions and potential voting. Quote, absent withdrawal of the bill, a vote blocking the bill from the agenda merely puts it off for another day when conditions are more favorable to the sponsors. Well, if that's the case, I have a two-word comment to make on that. Are you ready for this? I won't even use law Latin. Here's my comment. So what? This is the legislature, Therese. And she put that in a release on Wednesday. Quote, for example, one of the largest concerns stated at the public hearing was that this bill was timed prior to the election. You know, this is not Saturday Night Live. I'm reading what's actually in this story here. Everything is timed prior to the election except items that occur after November 3rd. Between November 3rd and the end of the year, everything occurs before the election. And then, of course, that women's group, the pro-abortionists, the baby killers, came out and said, just like clockwork, every time there's an election, you know, the same old folks introduce these anti-abortion bills. And I think we pretty much tore that apart and debunked it here on the show. But once again, even if that's the case, so what? The legislature is not supposed to entertain anything because an election is coming? Placement of this bill on the agenda closer to the election may be the strategy. Now, of course, people who sponsor bills at the legislature, there's got to be a standing rule legislature. There can be no strategic thinking when a senator introduces a bill or when senators introduce a bill. There can be no strategic thinking allowed at all. We need to have a set of silver coins to flip and dice to roll so that no planning, no strategy, no tactics at all could ever be a part of the legislative process. It's the only way to do it, Jose.
Don't forget, every legislation has to be unique and a precedent. Can
Exactly.
never mirror anything else.
Absolutely not. You know, yeah, for sure. If another state has a bill that works really well, you know, to even reference it, it's something we'd expect of Joe Biden as plagiarism. Unfortunately, that prolongs a very painful and divisive debate, as we have seen to be the goal in some states. Now, I'm glad that she's concerned about things that are painful. And I can't resist here. How much pain does a baby go through when you literally tear it limb from limb within the womb and pull the pieces out? And then if you followed that whole David Delayden suit in California and then sell the parts, you know, to medical labs. Unfortunately, that prolongs a very painful and divisive debate, as we have seen to be the goal in some states. I don't want that for our community. Now, she probably has something there, because remember her bill to change the mandatory medical malpractice arbitration statute? Remember how painful that was? It appeared to be. Well, it's not painful anymore because she's dropped it. Yeah, what happened to it? Where did it go?
Must be an election year.
Yeah, it must be an election year. She probably had a strategy, but she knows that that's a no-no, you know. She probably doesn't want to run the risk of angering deep pockets like people in the medical profession when she's trying to raise money for her campaign. Unfortunately, that prolongs a very painful and divisive debate, as we have seen. I do not want that for our community, man. Such a peacemaker, right? Oh, so no, bulan ay inafamalik ipalawan. She buys it by the gallon. She goes down to Chody and said, I'd like a gallon of anaphemolic then. Attorney Peter Scrow, who helped draft the bill, has stated that Bill 291 was months in the making and denies there was any political timing or motivation behind its introduction. Too bad. The Guam measure is just one of many challenging abortion rights in the United States in the light of the implementation of laws like that in Texas, as well as the potential overturning of Roe v. Wade. Telahi is the chairperson of the Committee on Health. That's ironic. A pro-abortion senator in charge of the Committee on Health. She said, regardless of her personal views on the issue of abortion and on Bill 291, she did her duty to create a fair and accurate record of all the testimony on 291 for any subsequent legislative deliberation debate on this bill, and that the senators contemplating any further action on the bill can be fully informed by the public hearing. Now, I read somewhere that the committee report's not done. So how much of a duty did you do if you didn't finish it? The bill is based on similar law in Texas that would ban abortions once a fetal heartbeat is detected, normally within about 6 weeks, which is earlier than most women know they are pregnant. Bill 291, as introduced, creates an exemption in case of medical necessity, but makes no exceptions in cases of rape or incest. Meaning, once again, the media bias, meaning this is another problem with it, right? The Health Committee report includes an overwhelming 881 written testimonies against 291. The speaker release said just a little over 280 written testimonies were in favor of the bill. Well, I have my own explanation for that from watching the hearings and from testing, some of the attitudes out in the community. There is something called breadth of feeling and depth of feeling. I think breadth of feeling anti-abortion is almost island-wide. But depth of feeling is a much smaller group, but the feelings are much deeper, and people are willing to get out and exercise their bad feelings. Second observation is this: anger is a tremendous motivator. People who are angry tend to be much more active than people who are happy or people who are displeased. And from what I saw when I watched the hearings, there is an awful lot of anger on the pro-abortion side. It's what I would call the Greta Thunberg syndrome. How dare you?
How dare you?
How dare you tell a woman what she can do with her body, even if her body is inhabited by another person? According to Telahi, the report is more than 2,000 pages long and includes the intervening circumstances of the leaked U.S. Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade, the landmark case that established abortion as a right in the U.S. for the last 50 years. Public hearings were recently held on the bill titled the Guam Heartbeat Act. The Committee on Health, which handled the hearings, wasn't able to finalize the report, which is necessary for it to be confirmed item on the agenda.
So was it removed or just not put on?
Well, I'll get to that, but the point right now is that she didn't finish the hearing. Going back, she said regardless of her personal views on the issue of abortion and on Bill 291, she did her duty to create a fair and accurate record of all testimony on Bill 291 for any subsequent legislative deliberation debate on this bill, so that senators contemplating any further action on the bill can be fully informed. Yeah. Public hearings were recently held on the bill. The Committee on Health, which handled the hearings, wasn't able to finalize a report. which is necessary for it to be confirmed on the agenda. The committee report was sent out 7 a.m. Wednesday for members of the Committee on Health to vote on, but as of 3:30 p.m., only 2 members voted, according to Terlahi. All of this is timing. You know, you set the times for these things, like the Rules Committee meeting, for the session, for the public hearing, as though they're all independent, unconnected events. But, you know, if you've got a public hearing, a committee report that's going to be 2,000 pages long, figure out how long that's going to take you and set your Rules Committee meeting after that date. This whole thing about having to plan ahead because of Public Law 3634 is something brand new to this whole cast of characters. The Committee on Rules, which sets the agenda for the legislative session on Wednesday, to remove the bill as a potential item on the agenda. Now, what happens is this. The chairman comes forward with an agenda, and the Rules Committee sometimes just with single vote adopts the whole agenda. Sometimes they adopt it piecemeal, but until the Rules Committee votes for it, it's not the agenda. So it wasn't removed from the agenda. It was never on the agenda. Among those who voted to remove the bill, in other words, not approve it being on the agenda, were 2 of the co-sponsors, Amanda Shelton and Frank Bloss Jr. Terlahi stated Shelton is also on the Health Committee. Senator Duenas, another co-sponsor, sits on the committee as well. Senator Talina Nelson, the main sponsor for 291 and another member of the Health Committee, was on military duty but is expected to return Thursday. Now, once again, this is not a rule, it's the custom that the main sponsor of a bill moves the Committee on Rules for placement of that bill on the agenda. Nelson's on military duty. I guess she could have consulted with Esteves over at Homeland Security to find out how you go about conducting government business when you're on military leave. He seems to have been able to figure out how to do it. Wasn't a handicap for him. Potential items on the agenda include those bills that, potential items on the agenda include those bills the senators believe could have a committee report ready by the time session is called. What a way to run a railroad. Well, they're potential because, well, maybe the committee report will be done, but maybe not. This kind of reminds me of another famous quotation here. It's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. Now, Vanessa Williams was prominent here in the public hearings. She could probably write up a script for the legislature that would read like this. It's impossible for us to plan all of our different possibilities of whether and when to put a matter on session from every other choice before us. Same kind of, this stuff's not important. Yeah, potential items as you were. As of Wednesday afternoon, the Speaker had not scheduled the date for the session. The U.S. Supreme Court is expected to issue a final decision in June. Moreover, the report includes the resulting complicated issue of an already existing abortion ban that was enacted 30 years ago but held unenforceable due to current court precedent upholding the right to an abortion. Regardless, this local ban was never repealed and can be enforced if the Supreme Court overturns the current precedent on abortion. It's not only can be enforced, must be enforced. However, it also includes a referendum provision that ultimately places the issue of the ban in the hands of voters. All right. Very interesting. And, you know, once again, calling out for a part-time legislature, 15 people who are really serious about doing this job, people who would get involved, plan, work hard, and get the work done in a 30-day session, not string it out over the whole year to give themselves a rationalization for having a position, a job, what it amounts to. Okay, let's break for the 10-minute break before the big halftime show.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
My name is John Kinata from the village of Umate. I've applied for the program Salapi to help me in my daily commute from Umate to Manila. Thank you to this administration for the program Salapi.
The application deadline for Program Salapi has been extended to May 22nd, 2022. For more information, please visit doa.guam.gov. This was paid for by the Office of the Governor using government funds.
Okay, so we got about 8 more minutes to that big halftime show. Let me see who I got waiting in the green room. None other than Another Joe. Good afternoon, Another Joe. I don't want to talk about compact impact. Let's talk about the Heartbeat Act.
Yeah, I concur. So the impression is that they're wanting to wait till after the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. That's why they're stalling. And the other theme is they need to have 10 senators to anticipate overturning the veto, which Governor Lou Leonguero has said she would veto the Heartbeat Act if it was to pass in the legislature. So the impression is somewhere along the lines of making sure they have 10 votes. And wanting to make part of that being wanting to wait until the Supreme Court overturns Roe versus Wade. What is your point of view about that, Uncle Bob? You think it's a good idea?
Well, Therese Terlai is doing exactly what she's accusing the Republicans doing. She has a strategy here. She wants to get the thing on the agenda now. And she wants to get it defeated now. She doesn't want the momentum created by the overturn of Roe versus Wade in June to help the Republicans push this through. So, exactly what she's complaining about them doing, she's doing the same thing herself. And I will give her the same benefit that I gave to the Republicans. She's got a plan. She's got a strategy. She's using a tactic. My comment on that is the same. So what? That's what senators do. If you think being a senator, and I'm not talking about Jim Moylan and the part-time legislature bill, if you think that all you have to do is introduce a bill and then somehow, as if by magic, it's going to become law, you probably should be doing something else other than running for legislature, because it doesn't work that way. Getting a bill through the legislature takes strategy, tactics, skill. It's not, there are no automatics. So that would be my first thought, Another Joe. My second thought is this. I don't see the importance of looking for 10 votes at this particular time. And I think it was not a smart move for the governor to come out and tip her hand, because that takes the pressure off of anybody who's on the fence who perhaps doesn't want to alienate the governor. Yeah, Governor, I voted for it, but you said you're going to veto it, so I figured Mox next, doesn't matter, and I won't vote to override. So I needed to vote for that bill because I need to get some of those anti-abortion votes going into the primary. So I don't think that was real skillful on her part. As far as the Republicans are concerned, ask yourself this question, Another Joe. let's say they get 8 votes, and of course they're going to get 2 Democrats. That's Shelton and Nelson. And they'll get 5 Republicans. They'll get all the Republicans, all 5 of them. We don't know what Mary Camacho is going to do, but if they pick up that 8th vote, that really, and the governor does veto it, that really holds the Democrats' senators' feet to the fire. Because as I read the situation, there are not an awful lot of votes in being pro-abortion right now. It's loud, it's vicious, it's angry, but when people get into that voting booth, I think most people are going to say, I can't go along with this. I can't go along with killing that little baby inside the mother. So I think politically, the governor's vetoing that bill could be her demise. Frank Uggan gave her a pass last time around. If Frank Uggan had campaigned on the abortion issue, he came within a couple hundred votes in the primary. That would have been enough to push him over the top, but for some unknown reason, he did not make an issue of it. And I think this time around, the Republicans are making an issue of it. I hope Governor Carlos Camacho will make an issue of it, because I see it as where the game lies. So perhaps for the Republicans, the best result would be 8 votes and a veto. How the override goes, Maseafa. What do you think, another Joe?
I'm curious about what you said about the senators who are preventing it from going forward in the was it the Rules Committee? You said. What is their thought? What are their thoughts?
Well, here's how it works. The chairman of the Rules Committee comes along and says, these are the bills that I think we should put on the next session. The Rules Committee then votes on whether or not to put them on. So there weren't a majority of the members of the Rules Committee that said, yeah, put it on the agenda. Therese had to, of course, make an issue out of it. She had to make a press release out of it. She had to report as though it was news. Oh, they took this off the agenda, but they really didn't, because it was never really on the agenda. So the Republicans apparently feel that their strategy is better if the matter comes on in the June session and not in the May session. That's apparently their strategy, and I can see the wisdom in it. If I would hope that there are senators there that are sticklers enough for doing business the way it ought to be done, that you don't even think about putting a bill on the agenda unless the committee report is done. Because the committee report has a signature page. And unless the majority of the members of the committee vote to report out, or to report out only, or to pass, it doesn't go on the agenda. If the majority of the members vote do not pass, it doesn't go on the agenda. So how can Therese even be talking about it when only 2 members have only signed on it? For all she knows, every other member is going to say do not pass. So it's so obvious what her agenda is. She's using her ability as the chairman of that committee and her seat on the Rules Committee to try to control this game. And that's what it is. It's a game. No committee report. They shouldn't even be considering it. Okay, let's take a break for the big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagatna, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The Disinformation Board goes on the shelf. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News.
It was never about censorship, policing speech, or removing content from anywhere.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre confirming the Department of Homeland Security is pausing its plans for a Disinformation Governance Board.
And the board's director, Nina Jankowicz, has resigned. The moves follow weeks of criticism from Republicans who dubbed the governance board a ministry of truth, straight out of a George Orwell novel. The administration defended the new board's work, arguing it followed work done by previous administrations to study the spread of disinformation. But critics questioned why Jankowicz was tapped to lead that effort, noting previous social media posts dismissing stories about a laptop belonging to the president's son, Hunter Biden.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. President Biden taking steps to ease the nationwide shortage of baby formula.
I'm invoking what they call the Defense Production Act to ensure that manufacturers have the necessary ingredients to make safe, healthy infant formula here at home.
He's also ordering the Defense Department to send aircraft overseas to bring formula back to the U.S. To deal with record high gas prices, the administration planning to lift economic sanctions against Venezuela to pave the way to import their oil. Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio telling Fox News the White House looking in the wrong place.
The oil that we need, we have. It's in America. They need to allow us to explore it, and they're not.
Analysts at J.P. Morgan are predicting the average price of gas will be $6 a gallon by Labor Day. The 76 gas station chain says it's updating the software in its pumps to prepare for $10 a gallon gas. A dreadful day on Wall Street Wednesday on fears of inflation eroding profits. The Dow plunged 1,164 points for its worst day in almost 2 years. NASDAQ fell 566 points. The S&P 500, 165 points lower. America is listening to Fox News.
The Federal Reserve is starting to increase interest rates to fight inflation, but they're still so low, making it the perfect time to refinance your home, to lower your rate, and perhaps take advantage of its increased value to put some cash in your pocket during these uncertain times. Cash that you can have the freedom to access when you want, where you want, with your Bank Pacific Visa debit card. Lower your rate, put cash in your pocket. Access your cash when you want, where you want, with your Visa debit card. Brothers put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, credit conditions apply.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
New York State looking to crack down not only on white supremacist views that led to deadly violence, but also the avenues that can spread them.
At a Wednesday news conference, New York Governor Kathy Hochul said racist views that can lead to violence can many times be spread via online posts and chat rooms.
In 2022, that's how radicalization is occurring, through the social media echo chamber.
New York State Attorney General Letitia James says her office will investigate social media outlets that had a part in spreading the Buffalo gunman's manifesto and allowing the killing of Buffalo residents to be streamed. In a statement, James said her hope is to shine a spotlight on their participation, not letting it go without consequence. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
5 people shot Wednesday night on the north side of Philadelphia. 3 of them reported to be in critical condition. And there's been a shooting on the campus of Middle Tennessee State University.
One victim is deceased and the other is injured and in critical but stable condition.
Sergeant Dan Goodwin of the Rutherford County, Tennessee Sheriff's Office, who says the shooting followed a high school graduation on the campus. The shooter still on the loose. Family Dollar closing an Arkansas warehouse found to be swarming with critters.
More than 1,000 rodents were discovered by FDA inspectors at the West Memphis, Arkansas facility in February after the agency received a consumer complaint. That forced the recall of items from hundreds of stores and the closure of over 400 stores in 6 southern states. Products removed from store shelves included everything from people and pet food to cosmetics, as well as medical devices and over-the-counter meds. Family Dollar says it's not aware of any illnesses relating to the recall. The company says the distribution center will be shuttered by the end of October, affecting approximately 300 employees. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. My name is Jerome Kinata from the village of Umate. I've applied for the program as Salapi to help me in my daily commute from Umate to Manila. Thank you to this administration for the program as Salapi.
The application deadline for Program Salapi has been extended to May 22nd, 2022. For more information, please visit doa.guam.gov. This ad was paid for by the Office of the Governor using government funds.
Mornings on Star 101 are getting blended. Half a day, I'm Kyle Mandapat, and I'm making my return to radio on Star 101. I hope you're ready to go, because I'm ready to go. The Morning Blender with me, Kyle Mandapat, every weekday starting May 23rd from 6 to 9 a.m. only on Star 101.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
So here we are, Tall Tales, another exceptionally good halftime show here on Tall Tales. That means we are in the second half of Tall Tales this afternoon. And the next item on the card, where did my card go? The next item on the card is McNinch versus Saul. As in Better Call Saul. And McNinch has a column in the Post, and here's what he said in his last column. Last Saturday, I walked the Guam Bar Association, Guam Bar Association 5K race judicata with my wife. It was a very nice course, and Justice Torres rode a carabao for the first 100 yards or so. A Supreme Court justice cheating in a 5K? It boggles the mind. It was nice to see people out at an early morning race again. It was obvious a lot of effort went into this wonderful event. When I first started working at the university, my office and classes were held at a house on Dean Circle. In 1962, Typhoon Karen destroyed about 95% of homes on Guam. Now, Ron, I got to correct you on this next sentence here. A contractor agreed to build the houses on Dean Circle to make up for irregularities in the post-typhoon recovery. No. What happened was after the typhoon, the government of Guam decided to build teacher houses in many different locations on the island because in 1962, 1963, almost half of the teachers, maybe more than half of the teachers, were recorded from the mainland. Some may think that was a terrible mistake. That's how I happened to wind up here. I suppose had it not been for that, I would have never arrived. So literally plane loads of teachers were brought over from the mainland. In 1963, there was not, as far as I can remember, one apartment building on this entire island. Not a single apartment building. There were still plenty of what we used to call semi-concrete houses, concrete block houses with tin roofs. A lot of teachers, including Daryl Taggarty's dad, lived out in a place called Harmon Field. Harmon Field was a teacher housing area made up of wood, old wood houses left over from World War II, housing for the 20th Air Force personnel that did their flying out of Harmon Field, but they lived over there in what was called Harmon Village, not too far from the access road to Two Lovers Point. But there really wasn't much housing out in the general area to house teachers. So the government of Guam built houses all over the island. They built about a half dozen up at about the back gate of Anderson, maybe 20 near Maria Udzoa and Dedido, a pretty good crop of houses down by Ocean View Junior High, Dean Circle at the university, and let's see, probably a couple other areas that I can't remember. They must have
south, right?
Yeah, Agate.
Molesto also had some?
Yeah, I don't think there were any of that far. Yeah. The government probably built 150 houses, including the Dean Circle houses, for teachers. And the rent, one of the attractive features was the rent was very low. Of course, salaries were very low at the time also, but that's where Dean Circle came from. Dean Circle had a couple of high school teachers lived there, but primarily it was University of Guam people that lived in Dean Circle. And then as time moved on and much more housing became available out in the local community, the university converted those houses into various other uses. I remember Cedars was in one of the houses. I guess Ron's office was there. Anyhow, that's the story on Dean Circle. Going on, as I have mentioned in other columns, Building A and Building B at the university were physically crumbling until Kaleo Moylan made efforts to push for a new building for the School of Business and Public Administration. Back in the day, A and B, screens on the windows, nobody even thought it was possible to air condition any classrooms in those days. College, high school, it just didn't happen. So when you're out there in Building B for your class, after you worked hard all day and it's hotter than the hinges of hell in that classroom, some learning took place anyhow. The faculty members were able to give input on plans for the new building, for the new Jose Leon Guerrero School of Public Administration. I asked for a theater lecture room for large classes. Today, most of my classes are in room 131, which should have law school classes in it one day. You got that no sound effect, Jose?
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Ron. I even developed a low-cost law school model for Guam, and we could have a cohort complete law school cycle every 3 years. Most law schools are designed around an annual admission cycle with high operational overhead costs. The model I use is extremely low cost and could operate first as a pilot. Well, let me give you the chapter and verse on law schools, right? Let's say that you could put together a law school. Now, in order to have even a de minimis law school, you probably need to have a beginning class of 100 law students. And the average law school class is probably 30 or so students in the class. So let's say that you started out next year with 100 law students, and they go on to 2L and 3L and finally graduate. So in 3 years, you'd have 100 new lawyers. In 4 years, you'd have 200 new lawyers. In 5 years, you'd have 300 new lawyers. What would we do if we, in other words, the first year, you'd fill up the kit. So what do? You start it up and run it for 3 years and then shut it down because you have completely supplied the demand for lawyers on the island? It doesn't make sense. And to think that you could start a law school in the 21st century and create lawyers who could get a job anywhere else, except perhaps in Albuquerque, if they could start an office in the rear of a nail salon. But even then, there isn't much room for a criminal lawyer, but there is room for a criminal lawyer. Yeah, so the way law schools operate, first thing, you have to have the building, and the plant is not that hard. You need to have, large lecture rooms, small classrooms, office space, etc. You don't need any special equipment or sound effects or anything like that. But you need to have a faculty and you need to have a library. And the faculty, you can't just say, well, we've got several hundred lawyers on Guam. We could just hire lawyers to come out and work for us part-time. No, that won't work. If you're going to have a law school at all, you got to be approved by the American Association of Law Schools and the American Bar Association. If you're not, then what you're doing is you're running a cottage industry. You could probably group your law school together with a couple of other operations to draw in revenue. You could have a law school, transmission exchange, and quick change oil shop. Because no one is going to want to go to your law school if it's not approved. And in order to be approved, you have to have a pretty high quality faculty. Distinguished people. Even smaller law schools have some pretty high-powered dudes. They get to be high-powered dudes because they're published in law reviews and they establish a reputation in the legal community. You have to have books. We have a law library here because sometime in the 70s, this Jerkwater Law School is probably like the kind you want to start, Ron, went out of business, and they gave our law library a really good price on 30,000 volumes. 30,000 volumes isn't even a good start. Maybe 300,000 volumes would be a pretty good start if you want to be a first-class law school. And yes, I know about the internet. And a lot of stuff that used to be in hard copy is now on the internet, but a lot of stuff isn't. And you got to have a first-class library with a first-class librarian, a first-class faculty, and there's a certain snobbishness in the law school community. Unless you've been around for 100 years, you're a brand-new law school. When I got the bug that I wanted to go to law school, I applied at 5 different schools, got accepted at 2, took the law school aptitude test, got a good enough grade to be accepted at 2, one of which was New Mexico, which is a place I really wanted to go because I just thought it'd be a good place to live. So I signed up to go to the University of New Mexico, and I ran into Ken Ariola. May he rest in peace. I'll be paying my last respects tomorrow. A guy I really admired, the lawyer's lawyer, Ken Ariola. And I told him, I was really happy. Ken, I'm going to go to law school. He said, where are you going to go? I said, New Mexico. He said, kind of frowned a little bit, and he said, that's just about a brand new school. And what struck me at the time was, okay, so brand new. I said, I'd like to have a new car. It didn't dawn on me until I actually went to law school how important that is. University of New Mexico was started in 1948. I went in 1971. So for law schools, that is brand fire new. So when you go out into the job market, all of these things add up. And when you're starting a law school, you don't want to start something that's not slow, not fast, kind of half-fast. That's what you want to avoid at all costs.
Half what?
Fast.
Oh.
And Ron, I don't think we could even do that. I don't think we could even have a half-fast law school here. I don't know about your low-cost option, but there isn't anything cheap about starting a law school. New Hampshire and Vermont have only had law schools for about 50 years. They've got more resources than we do. Nevada, 1998. It was 1998 until Nevada got its first law school. Now, you think that if anybody could have one, they got the funds, but it's just not that easy. Historically, a gentleman named Sam Pack, P-A-I-K, Sam Pack, a well-known lawyer at the time, somehow got a position at the university, a position of authority, maybe even a deanship. And he had the idea, we're going to start our own law school. And obviously it never got off the ground. And one of the arguments I heard was, well, you know, we need to have our own law school because I don't think there's any law school that specializes in Guam law. Anybody capable of that statement ought to be roundly ignored. It just isn't how it works. Lawyers do their research with books. Nowadays, you could do a lot of it online, etc. And, you know, places like Washington, what's his name? Dick Santos. No, it's Peter Santos. Peter Santos. I always get confused on that guy's name. Yeah, Peter. Peter says that University of Washington has an Indian law department. So geography doesn't have a whole lot to do with what's involved in a law school's curriculum. It plays a role. For instance, at New Mexico, there are lots of courses in mineral law, oil and gas, because there's a lot of oil and gas under the ground in New Mexico. Water law, etc. But the chances of us having a real law school here, Ron, are about the same as the government of Guam building a rocket ship to colonize Mars. It just isn't going to happen. But an interesting letter nonetheless. Okay, let's go on to the next item on the card. This is Clay Travis versus Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick, the NFL's original anthem protester and celebrated Nike pitchman, is set to receive an honorary degree from Morgan State University. That's amazing. That's amazing, isn't it? Now, Morgan State is in West Virginia. I think it's Morgantown, West Virginia, but I'm not positive. I think I've been there. The university announced Wednesday that Kaepernick would receive the honorary degree alongside filmmaker David Talbert and education equity advocate David Burton. Morgan State University President David Wilson released a statement celebrating the three honorees. Leadership, integrity, innovation, diversity, excellence, and respect are more than just words that appear on the flags that adorn our campus, or words that we utter casually when reciting our core values. They represent the embodiment of who we are and what a Morgan graduate stands for. Well, thanks for the warning. With this notion in mind, we intentionally sought a collection of individuals who truly embody these principles. And thankfully, we have assembled a trio of diverse voices who have bravely stood and kneeled for the betterment and advancement of the voiceless, the marginalized, the disenfranchised, Well, let's see, pro football players, the voiceless, the marginalized, the disenfranchised. Yeah, they really need Kaepernick to speak for them. We're absolutely thrilled to bestow honorary degrees to David E. Talbert, David Burton, and Colin Kaepernick for their individual and collective contributions to the progression of the black narrative and pursuit of excellence. Kaepernick, who was recently inspired a Netflix series in addition to publishing a children's book, will receive an honorary Doctor of Humane Letters degree. The former 49er has spent much of the last several months angling for another opportunity to join the NFL ranks.
Maybe he can be a sports trainer now.
Yeah. Though it's curious why Kaepernick would want back into the league, considering he likened the NFL selection process, that's the draft, the NFL selection process to a 19th century slave auction. Yeah, so he's Morgan State's going to give him an honorary degree. Now, Clay Travis posted a comment here, and that's why I put him on the card. Colin Kaepernick compares the NFL Combine, which allows all players of all races a voluntary chance to become multimillionaires, to slavery. Anyone still defending this imbecile lacks a functional brain. All right, let's see who we can hang that tag on. David Wilson, the president of Morgan State, lacks a functional brain. And by the way, I see some discrimination here, Jose. President David Wilson bestows honorary degrees on David Talbert and David Burton. I don't know.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's right there. Where's the diversity? If your name isn't David, you don't have a chance. Okay, let's head for church, as you were, for Wrigley Field for the 7th inning stretch.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Here at Nimitz Towers, we're a large-scale rental complex. We have over 20 employees, and when the pandemic hit, our concerns were people not being able to work, loss of revenue and income, and luckily, due to PPP, we were able to keep all our employees employed, working. We were able to provide services, maintenance, and cleanliness for the building and the operation. Also, the rental assistance program helped us stay solvent during the pandemic, helped us keep the attendance in place.
We're thankful for Congressman San Nicolas advocating for these funds on our behalf in Washington, D.C.
If you have any concerns about any federal issues, feel free to contact your congressman's office.
Thank you for the federal funds. Thank you for the federal funds. Thank you for the federal funds.
Thank you for the federal funds.
Thank you for the federal funds. Thank you for the federal funds.
Paid for with official funds from the Office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Okay, next on the card is Governor versus Estevez with a question mark. I've got a story here that ran on KUAM last night. This whole Esteves-Brennan matter seems to be a GovGuam version of Who's on First. You'll recall yesterday I read from the Post article where Esteves alleged some really serious treatment on Brennan's part of an employee at Homeland Security or Civil Defense, we don't know which, named Espia. And it goes like this. Brennan reportedly disabled Espia's badge and access to the GHS OCD facility, instructed staff not to talk to Espia, and directed a law enforcement officer to check up on him at a clinic where he was being treated to obtain information. So, you know, I'm wondering, maybe I have a responsibility here to report this to the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. But as they got poor Mr. Espia there at the hospital, and they're treating him somehow to obtain information. You remember that movie, The Running Man, where the dentist put the guy in the chair and just tortured him with his dental tools?
Guantanamo went from one tropical island to the next.
Yeah.
Another.
Yeah. Or were they administering truth serum to him? Or maybe they were waterboarding him under sterile conditions. But regardless of what it was, he was being treated to obtain information. So I'm really kind of shocked by that, but that's what this guy Esteves said. So it's pretty, I can understand why Esteves would be sticking up for Espia if they're putting him through that. Okay, then KUAM comes back and I'm trying to top it, I guess, come up with something even better. And the headline is this: Civil Defense's Esteves barred from speaking at planner's adverse action hearing. Okay, the planner is Espia, right? And the adverse action hearing is the continuation of the status quo at the Civil Service Commission. A status call hearing, you don't really need the hearing there. Status call is good enough. A status call was held this afternoon with the Civil Service Commission regarding the termination appeal of Leo Espia. Espia, a planner with the Homeland Security Office of Civil Defense, was terminated by Homeland Security Advisor Samantha Brennan in April of this year for an unauthorized breach of GovGuam's network by installing a privately owned server without prior authorization by the agency. Espia filed a letter of appeal with CSC on April 27, stating that adverse action was taken without cause. OCD, Office of Civil Defense Administrator Charles Esteves sent a letter to the Civil Service Commission on May 11 requesting to revoke Espia's notice of final adverse action, noted it was unlawfully initiated by Brennan and that she does not have the authority. During the status quo, Espia's lay representative, Robert Koss, and management representative, Assistant Attorney General Donald Lawrence, had a heated exchange over whether Esteves, who was present on the call, could speak on the matter. Lawrence claimed that Esteves did not have standing on the matter. Okay, I'll go back to the headline again. Civil Defense Esteves barred from speaking at the planner's adverse action hearing. Lawrence claimed that Esteves did not have standing on the matter. Next paragraph. When asked to comment on Brennan's actions, the governor's communications director, Crystal Paco San Augustine, said the governor's office, quote, cannot comment on matters raised in the ongoing dispute before the CSC. Paco San Augustine said that Esteves is presently on military leave. This is what Paco San Augustine said. Quote, upon completion of his military training, he may, repeating the word may, he may resume his duties as administrator of the Office of Civil Defense. Until such time, he is not acting as the administrator of the Guam Office of Civil Defense. Back to the headline of the story. Civil Defense is established barred from speaking at the planner's adverse action hearing. Is something missing from this story? Was he barred from speaking? Or are we to read between the lines in Crystal Paco San Augustine's release? He's on leave. He ain't the acting director. It would have seemed that the story right after should have said, Lawrence claimed that Estevez did not have standing on the matter. Administrative law judge Eric Miller agreed with Lawrence and said that Estevez wouldn't be permitted to speak. That would have been the story. But they talked about everything but what the headline referenced. So out there in our international radio listening audience, aren't you glad you're a tailgater? How else would you ever find out what's going on in this community? Certainly reading the papers and watching the news ain't going to do it for you. Okay, let's see. It's still a little bit early for Churchill Downs, so I've got a story that's been in my pack here for quite some time that I haven't dealt with. It ran in the Post, and it's another one, just like the two that I read. It's another one that I've held on to, hoping the Post would correct it, but they haven't. So I'm going to use it as a teachable moment to teach you a little bit about the insular cases. And here we go. After denied citizenship, 3 born in American Samoa asked Supreme Court to overrule racist insular cases. That's the headline in the Post. Well, I could make about a whole program just out of the headline. Nobody denied those people American citizenship. The 3 plaintiffs in that Fisimano suit who are living in Colorado. No one said, they didn't say, can I be an American citizen? Denied. Okay, they came from American Samoa. They moved to the mainland. It's not that they were denied American citizenship. They were ineligible for American citizenship from the get-go. But it sounds so much more sexy if you can tie it in here with racism, right? After denied citizenship, 3 born in American Samoa asked Supreme Court to overrule racist insular cases. We got to do something about this. Why is American Samoa so racist? Why are they not letting those people be citizens? Why did they deny? That's where the headline takes you, right? 3 individuals born in American Samoa were denied recognition as U.S. citizens, petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court to overrule the so-called insular cases. That is, that to this day deprive territories such as Guam from having full constitutional rights.
Is that a quotation, or that's just something they made up?
That's Heidi's language. I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed here. She's just repeating what everybody knows and what everybody says, right? So the insular cases don't deprive the territories, such as Guam, of having full constitutional rights. As I've pointed out numerous times, since the Mink Amendments, we got all the constitutional rights. Now, the smart money over there says, yeah, we got all the constitutional rights. How come we ain't voting? Well, believe it or not, voting is not a constitutional right. I know that sounds hard to believe. But if you go through the amendments, if you go with through the amendments, you'll find that there are protections for certain kinds of voters, but there's no place in the Constitution that says American citizens have the right to vote. Now, let me just give you some examples here. 15th Amendment. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. You can't deny it, but it doesn't say you have the right to vote. And you have the 19th Amendment, the one that all of the harpies down there screaming about bodily autonomy think is so precious that they work so hard to get, but an all-male House of Representatives and Congress and state legislatures gave them in August of 1920. And here's how that one reads. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. Does it say women have the right to vote? No. And then the last one here, well, here's the 24th. The right of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or other election for president, etc., shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state by reason of failure to pay any poll tax or other tax. And then we have the 26th Amendment. The right of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of age. Same thing. So there's no place in the Constitution that says that you have a right to vote. So the way the Constitution is set up, your political rights are primarily a function of national citizenship, or actually national personhood. I pointed out before that most of the rights in the Constitution, or most of the events in the Constitution, go to persons, not citizens. But your political rights depend on state citizenship. That's where your political rights come from. And if the insular cases were overruled, if the Supreme Court came together and said, we are now looking back at Downs versus Bidwell, where we held that the uniformity clauses of the Constitution did not apply in Puerto Rico, and find that we kind of screwed up. So we're reversing ourselves now, and we're saying that the uniformity clauses of the United States Constitution do apply in Puerto Rico and all of the other territories. It wouldn't give you the right to vote, any right to vote that you don't have right now. But people don't want to hear this. It's much more fun. After denied citizenship, 3 born in American Samoa asked Supreme Court to overrule racist insular cases. By the way, if you have an overpowering desire to learn more about this, check out Pacific Island Times on the 1st of next month. Going on with this article, the Supreme Court overturns if the Supreme Court overturns the insular cases, that could pave the way for residents of Guam and other territories to have voting powers. Wrong. I mean, this is just not, kind of like a typo. This is an extremely serious mistake.
And they just dissolved the Disinformation Commission.
Right.
Darn it.
Yeah.
No song.
Unless the news of the dissolution is disinformation, which is possible.
Could be.
Yeah.
I blame the insular cases.
Of course. If the Supreme Court overturns the insular cases, that could pave the way for residents of Guam and other territories to have voting powers, more representation in Congress. Just a horrible mistake.
Nope.
Or federal benefits such as supplemental security income for elderly, disabled, and blind. 1 out of 3, you got it right. In their April 27 petition, John Fitissimanu Paletuli and Rosavita Tooley asked the court to decide whether persons born in the U.S. territories are entitled to birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment's Citizenship Clause and whether the insular cases should be overruled. Well, let me read the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause again and show you the part that is conveniently omitted from this argument and every other argument made along these lines. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. And nobody wants to read that, and in the state where they reside. So if you read the words in their common meaning, you know, you don't become a citizen of the United States unless you also become the citizen of a state. The insular cases, let's see. The insular cases are a series of Supreme Court opinions issued in the early 1900s, which decided that people residing in territories, and of course they weren't even territories at the time, in 1901, they weren't territories, aren't entitled to full constitutional rights, often for racist reasons. And this is not a quote, this is hard news. This is something you can hang your hat on. These include the territories being inhabited by alien races. Now that's back to Ann Hattori's quote that I've debunked a million times. Ann Hattori can't even copy, much less act like a historian and go to original source documents. These include the territories being inhabited by, quote, alien races, close quote, who shouldn't be governed according to Anglo-Saxon principles. It just isn't in Downs versus Bidwell or in any of the other cases. It's just made up. The three America Samoa-born petitioners are now residing in Utah. Joining them as a petitioner is the Southern Utah Pacific Islander Coalition, a nonprofit organization that serves the Samoan community in the area. I guess we're back to Better Call Saul here again, huh? Last week, Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch called for the court to overturn the insular cases when the court ruled that residents of Puerto Rico and by extension the other territories like Guam are ineligible to receive SSI benefits. Guam officials expressed disappointment with that Supreme Court decision. I guess I'm not a Guam official because I did not express disappointment. The decision was right.
I like to see the names of those Guam officials.
Really?
So we can talk about them here on Telltale.
Yeah, well, Tina Rose Munya Barnes, of course. Neil Weir, a Guam official who doesn't live on Guam, right? While Gorsuch agreed with the court's ruling on the SSI case, he wrote that the court should use a future case to overturn the insular cases, which he said have shameful flaws and deserve no place in our law. Fitissimano sought a legal victory in 2019 when a federal court ruling recognized American Samoans as U.S. citizens. Now, the interesting thing about that, and I commented on the time, the decision in the district court was that anybody born just soli, the law of soil, born on soil which the United States exercises sovereignty over, according to the 14th Amendment, is a natural-born citizen. So if that decision stood, then everybody who lived in the Philippine Islands and many of their descendants, many who lived in the Philippine Islands before 1946, are natural-born citizens.
To this day.
To this day.
Because I understand you said you cannot take it away.
Yeah, it's indelible. Once you got it, you can't take it away. You can be denaturalized, if you make a false oath on a naturalization affidavit, like, no, I was only wearing German uniform for bowling team. I was not guard at Auschwitz. Yeah. So that would be the collateral benefit of that ruling if it had stood. All right, let's head for Churchill Downs, and I'll come back and finish up this article.
Afterday, my name is John Kinata from the village of Umate. I've applied for the program as Salapi to help me in my daily commute from Umate to Manila. Thank you to this administration for the program as Salapi.
The application deadline for Program Salapi has been extended to May 22nd, 2022. For more information, please visit doa.guam.gov. This ad was paid for by the Office of the Governor using government funds.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Mornings on Star 101 are getting blended. Today, I'm Kyle Mandapat, and I'm making my return to radio on Star 101. I hope you're ready to go, because I'm ready to go. The Morning Blender with me, Kyle Mandapat, every weekday starting May 23rd from 6 to 9 a.m. only on Star 101.
Okay, so here we are back to this masterpiece that ran in the Post. Okay, so there was a district court ruling in 2019 in favor of Fitissimano. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit, however, reversed the ruling in 2021, saying that birthright citizenship does not apply to American Samoa. And then here we go again. The Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment says that persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States, unless you read it. But because of a federal law labeled by some discriminatory, labeled by some.
In a way, it's not a bad discriminatory.
It is.
But it is a discriminatory.
It is discriminatory, and what's her name? Amua Radewagen spent about a half an hour here on Tall Tales.
That's right.
Telling me how they favored the discrimination and they don't want Neil Weir screwing around with their status.
They asked for it.
Yeah, they are exactly where they want to be. So yeah, it's discriminatory because as nationals, they can have their own system of land tenure, and they don't have to worry about the constitutional provisions like due process or equal protection. The upper house of their legislature is set up along the lines of clans. Same thing. It wouldn't pass constitutional muster if the Constitution applied ex proprio vigere. So they're happy with the way they are. But three guys in Denver aren't, and they got... Neil Weir found the three guys in Denver and filed suit on their behalf. Now, here's another whopper. The Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit relied on an interpretation of the Insular cases and not the Constitution. This is just so sad. Fitissimano and the other petitioners, through their counsel, said their case is an ideal vehicle for the Supreme Court to overrule the Insular cases. I live in fear of that happening. As I've pointed out so many times, that would be a disaster for us. Because no more Section 30, no more mirror image income tax. We'd have to have super large taxes here or cut the government way, way, way down. It wouldn't work for us. But Neil Weir wants to make a name for himself, and he keeps pounding away at it. That's what lawyers do. Let's see. What do I got? 6 more minutes to go here.
Maybe we can name the law school after him.
Neil McNinch's Law School, Neil Weir School of Law. Yeah.
No?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Saul Goodman would be a better name for the McNinch Law. The Saul Goodman Memorial School of Law. Yeah. And I don't know if you watched much of that show, Jose.
I watched Breaking Bad. That's what I know Saul, but I haven't seen Better Call Saul yet.
I think Better Call Saul may be better than Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it or not, it's really good. So Jimmy McCormick is an ace grifter, and he's doing a grift in Chicago. He's got a little something like the pigeon drop, and it revolves around an expensive watch. And he makes the grift, and he says goodbye to his partner. And the partner has something like, it was really good working with you, Saul. And it's really good working with you, Jimmy. And Jimmy says, Saul good, man. Kind of a precursor to Jimmy's later incarnation. Okay, I got somebody waiting in the green room here. Let's see who it is. No, I don't have somebody waiting in the green room. I don't have to see who it is. I got about 4 more minutes to go. I think maybe what we'll do is cruise up and down Facebook and see who has clever comments. We got Johnny Utah. Johnny Utah says, if Guam really wanted to stand out, tourists would visit and decide to stay and make Guam home. Well, it happened to me. I wasn't a tourist. And then we've got Dennis Bensur, who says Dick's last resort. I guess he's talking about Peter Santos again, huh? And then Harvey Egna said that used to happen in Paris. Paris cafes a lot.
Talking about the bad waiting service that's really good.
Yeah. Talking about that, but it wasn't an act. It was for real.
That's for real.
Yeah. And then Johnny Utah, Dennis Benzer, I want to come. I went to one in San Antonio on the Riverwalk when I was stationed at Brooks. And then Dennis Benzer, I went to one in San Diego after a few nights. One of the waiters gave me an application to Jose Ted Pago Jr. I think that was a move made to put senators on the spot. I think he's talking about the Rules Committee. Yeah. And that's good. That's your job when you're a senator. If people are opposed to your agenda and you have faith in your agenda, then sometimes all you can do is smoke them out. Okay, here we are. It's that time of day again for me to pick up my sign and say, let's go, Brandon. See you tomorrow.
Is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
It could have been prevented. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Saturday's mass shooting in Buffalo, which left 10 people dead.
Just 30 minutes before the deadliest mass shooting in Buffalo's history, the accused gunman shared his plans online, inviting a small group of people into a chat room on the messaging app Discord. 18-year-old Peyton Gendron described in detail his plans to murder as many black people as possible. No one alerted authorities.
Fox's Alexis McAdams in Buffalo. The suspect is due back in court today. In response to the attack, the House has passed a bill to devote more federal resources to preventing domestic terrorism. 5 people have been shot in Philadelphia, 3 of them critically injured, including a man who police say was hit 14 times. 2 suspects have been arrested, but there is no motive yet. Murfreesboro, Tennessee, shots rang out following a high school graduation at a sports arena on the campus of Middle Tennessee State University. 1 person is dead, another critical but stable. They're looking for the shooter. As the baby formula shortage continues, President Biden invoking war powers in an effort to solve it.
The Defense Production Act gives the government the ability to require suppliers to direct needed resources to infant formula manufacturers before any other customer who may have ordered that good.
Defense Department aircraft will also be used to fly formula imports to the U.S. In the Pennsylvania GOP Senate race, thousands of mail-in and some military ballots are yet to be counted. Dr. Mehmet Oz still clinging to a 1,200-vote lead.
We have covered all counties to ensure that the ballots are correctly counted. This election is ours. We have done well.
But businessman David McCormick telling Fox's The Ingram Angle he is closing the gap.
There's a huge number of absentee ballots, which we're winning disproportionately, and that's why I have a lot of confidence I'm going to win this.
The race likely headed to an automatic recount.